All right, so we're going to get into a nice mixed bag right here when discussing this whole Trae Young saga in Atlanta, as it is multi-layered. Not only he's in a contract year with him having that player option, but right now we're in a time where the NBA owners have slowly crafted this league where the pay structure is a lot different, and it's going to be based off a tier system. It won't necessarily be just about skill unless you're a player on the level of Luka, LeBron, and Giannis, etc. So we have seen players outside of that realm struggle to get their worth. Guys like Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler when he was in Miami, Jonathan Kuminga with the Warriors, even Norman Powell after playing like an all-star last season, he got shipped out to Miami just because the Clippers didn't want to necessarily pay up under these new rules. So in the second part of this segment, we'll hear from Mark Cuban as he kind of explains this tier structure that the league is in right now. But first, sticking to our guy Trae Young, we love to see him in the playoffs. He brings a different flair to the game, but unfortunately he does have to watch his back. The Hawks have not hired a team president in 3 seasons, but yet they keep hiring people underneath that position. It's looking like no one really wants that job because with Trae Young, he has gone through a number of coaches and different variations of this team. I believe Quinn Snyder is his 3rd head coach. And right here, check out Jeff Teague as he comes to Trae Young's defense and sort of crafts him in a way where he's alluding that he is a max player and where is he going to get his money. This NBA media landscape is very interesting because now players have a say and they can actually protect each other as far as them getting their worth when it comes to contract time. And the real question is Trae Young truly a max player in today's landscape? You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Because that was home, and I loved Atlanta, and I love playing for the Hawks, and I know he do too. So it's part of the game. Don't nobody really stay with one team the whole time. But when we thinking about it, I got a trade scenario for him.
Talk to me.
Me, I'm the biggest thing. I want him to get paid. No. Really think about it, though. Who's going to pay Trae Young max dollars?
And that assumption is the problem right there. Once again, Trae Young is about only 170 pounds. He's not really athletic. And on the defensive end, he is a liability due to his size. His 3-point shooting percentages have not really been great in the past couple of seasons. His best year was in the 2023-2024 season where he shot 37%. Other than that, that percentage has always been hovering around 30s. And also in crunch time situations, he really hasn't been that great. So there are a few things to look at, while at the same time, the NBA has changed a lot of the rules than when Trae Young had first came into the league. In the 2021 season, the NBA had got rid of a lot of the hooking that James Harden used to do, trying to draw fouls. Same thing for guys trying to land sideways and draw a 4-point play. A lot of that foul drifting has been taken out, while at the same time, there has been more players coming into the league, 6'8", 6'7", who could play defense. We've seen the Stephen Castle, the Herb Joneses, the Dyson Daniels, the Jaden McDaniels of the world out there in Minnesota. Those archetypes of players have been coming into the league almost in abundance. And like many other things in life, you have to evolve or else you're dying. And the main thing that really gets overlooked that I'm gonna add on to this, the chapter on the small ball era is beginning to end. If not, it already did. That mid 2010s kind of play style and just teams playing extra small, when you have guys like Giannis, Jokic, Wemby, Chet, and even teams like the Houston Rockets to a degree where they play with 2 bigs, it's going to be tough to justify paying a small guard who's 170 pounds who can't play defense to lead a team.
Who's going to pay Trae Young max dollars? Who?
No, it's just I want to hear your
No, I'm asking y'all. Think about it. So if he get traded to the Rockets, that means you got to give up some value pieces for the Rockets. I mean, you got to give up Jabari Smith Jr. or the Thompson twin, Reed Shepherd, and Van Fleet going to have to be a part of that. But do you...
Ain't nobody doing that, Jeff. Come on, let's keep it a buck. Ain't nobody doing that. But I get it. You vouching for your guy. You're one of the figureheads for the Atlanta Hawks franchise in the past few decades. And you understand the money that's on the line. That's a lot of the pushback that players had when Pat Bev started that kind of tiff with Trae Young during the offseason. It was well understood that Pat Bev was really fucking with his money.
Do you risk your future on Trae Young? Do you give up a Thompson twin, a Jabari Smith, who are really good defenders and big wings and stuff like that, when you got an aging Kevin Durant?
Nope.
Do you give up that for a 6-foot point guard?
That's going to be a tough ask, especially when you see most teams are not playing with a traditional point guard like that. The Oklahoma City Thunder, the San Antonio Spurs, the Detroit Pistons with Cade, even the Houston Rockets. Amen Thompson is kind of filling in for the Rockets, and it's working. We don't know how far they can go, but the train is definitely moving. Even the Dallas Mavericks had opened up their season playing Cooper Flag in a point forward position. They don't call this a copycat league for no reason.
And you still got an aging Kevin Durant. I don't think the Rockets do that. Me, as Trae Young fan, probably one of his biggest fans, I know the game is about getting paid. Like, don't nobody hoop and not want to get paid. Why you want to get paid, right? Who looking for a franchise point guard?
Once again, that's the issue right there. The league is transitioning. Most teams are not necessarily playing with a traditional point guard, especially after the success of the Oklahoma City Thunder with SGA. His player archetype is very similar to guys like Cade Cunningham, Luka, Pablo Banchero, Steven Castle, Amen Thompson, Anthony Edwards out there in Minnesota. Even with the players, what's that guy's name? Danny Avia. I would say the last 7 incoming draft classes have produced the play style that we see today. In a way, that's the brilliance of a guy like LeBron James, the way he's able to adapt to the different play styles and still somewhat be relevant.
Who gonna give you a max deal to come play? Sacramento Kings. Who gonna try to figure out how to build around you? They ain't never built around nobody, but shit, yeah, they try to figure out on a max deal.
Man, I'd rather him get traded to Utah, man.
Utah ain't gonna pay him.
All right.
And that's another issue that's going around the league right now. A lot of the teams that would normally pull the trigger on these trades, they're reluctant to spend that kind of money on a player that's not necessarily proven. If you're outside of that whole LeBron, Luka, Giannis, Jokic bracket, it's going to be very hard for you to establish taking the second tier payments, like around $40 million a year, $50 million a year. It's not too many players in the past couple seasons that have secured that type of deal. The only player I could think of off the top of my head is a guy like OG Anunoby with the New York Knicks. And that's probably because he's one of the best 3-and-D wings that you can have. But again, a lot of players in that sort of co-star role have struggled to get their value. Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler when he was in Miami, Norman Powell with the Clippers, Jonathan Kuminga with the Warriors, etc. The NBA owners have slowly crafted the league this way on purpose. All that player movement in the past decade, they put a cap on all the bullshit that came with it. Kevin Durant asked for a trade after signing an extension with the Brooklyn Nets. AD was still under contract with the Pelicans, asked to go to the Lakers. James Harden forcing his way out of Houston, etc., etc. These NBA owners took a lot of losses behind the scenes. And now with this new CBA, it's sort of their get back. And they restricted things in multitudes of levels. The 65-game rule is another example. If star players don't hit that benchmark, they don't qualify for certain awards. Thus, they don't qualify for certain supermax contracts. And it was very slick the way they did it, because that provision fits under a team rule, which only the owners could vote on. The players union had no say-so. So the owners got to vote on a rule that eventually down the line will affect players' contracts. Once again, these billionaires got teams of lawyers, and they were not going to allow this player movement to eventually fuck with their money. Keep in mind, in 2024, Tyrese Halliburton almost had to risk further injury just to qualify for the 65 games so he can get his max money. This season, we've seen Jalen Williams come off a championship, and because he's injured, automatically does not qualify for making all NBA teams, thus triggering the super max part of his contract. And the same thing is for Jokic. With his injury, depending on how many games he missed, he's going to have 2 years to try to hit that 65-game rule so he can sign his extension for the full amount. This shit get real tricky. At the end of the day, the league has been designed this way on purpose, so when new money comes in and buys these teams for billions of dollars, they're not on the hook the same way the previous owners were, with their superstars asking out immediately and they having to go by these demands.
Is it not the Kings?
Not the King.
Man,
Who else gonna pay him? Lou, who else gonna pay him?
that is the question that I've been seeing. Is like, okay, if Trae does get traded, who is going to, you know what I'm saying, extend his contract? Who is going to give him another deal?
That is the $1 million question. So now we're going to hear from Mark Cuban as he talks about the pay structure and now how guys have to kind of fit into this tier system. Sometimes their talent might be above a certain tier, but because you can only make trades for exact dollar amounts, and now owners will look at players and slot them into certain categories. That's where we see the mix up with a guy like Norman Powell playing like an all-star with the Clippers, but as soon as the offseason hits, they ship him out to Miami. So this situation is in correlation with what's going on with Trae Young and how his contract situation will eventually play out. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
You got to be certain they're going to get you over the top. If it's their final piece, you go all in, right? But if it's not, or you're not sure, no one's going to take them. Like even KD, it wasn't like there was huge demand for KD, right? KD, he's got to be a finishing piece, and that's what Houston hopes. Otherwise, it's $50 million is too much.
I would say a better example right now because of KD's age is Anthony Davis. He's at the tail end of his prime, but at $50 million a year under that 10-year Supermax, teams are hesitant. Even the Bulls had admitted that they're not giving up any of their young core for Davis.
One thing real quick, Perk. I was talking to a former GM, and he said what's going to happen, and I want to just kind of get your thoughts of it, and I don't remember it exactly, but it was like, you're going to start making every player a certain price, right? So instead of like, oh, well, we're going to pay you 125, we're going to play. No, the puzzle pieces have to fit together where we're going to pay you. We're going to pay this class of guy 8, this class of guy 10, this class of guy this. So now if we are trying to get off of a mistake or a trade, the dollars match. Because the dollars have to match dollar for dollar. So then you have to start pairing players dollar for dollar. So you might be above your value or you might be below your value, but they have to pair you in a slot because they can't fluctuate the trades.
Yeah, effectively, like, you're going to have to figure out analytically your dollars per minute played. And how whatever analytics you use, how much are you willing to pay for this plus minus amount? If the guy's a net plus minus and he's top 10 in the league, okay, but if you don't have the other pieces, you can't, it's a wasted amount of money no matter what, right? It's got to be a finishing piece, not a starting piece, like I said before.
Now, right there, that in a way sounds good when you're trying to balance the books and you're just looking at the money and trying to make it work. But in regards to basketball on-court symmetry and just having a feel for the game as a unit, that takes away a lot of the eye test perspective of the game, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because not only it's affecting the team building process, but it leaves you to wonder how strong really is the players union if they're going to let guys get evaluated off a tier system. These are the dangers of letting private equity into the league creep in slowly. Because at the end of the day, they're all about the numbers. And Mark Cuban right here reveals how the hell did we get here and the true formula for NBA owners to make money.
Mark, I have my thoughts, but I want to get yours on how did we get to this point, to this second apron nonsense and all these rules, all these stipulations we have now that, people are mad about, and they got to actually, to me, do their job and their due diligence and actually, hire the right people in their organization to make sure that they set up for the long haul because of these rules. How did we get to this point? I got my thoughts. I want to hear yours.
From an owner's perspective, former owner's perspective that knows other owners, half the teams lose money. Half the teams still lose money because what ends up happening, Perk, even though the TV money goes up, right. A lot, 51% out the door to the players, right? And then on top of that, like the Mavs, we lost tens of millions of dollars when Bally's went bankrupt. Gone. Mm-hmm. It's like gone. And there was like hardly anything to replace it from our local TV deal. And so you've got, specific things like that where teams just are losing money. And the only teams that always make money are the New York and LA area teams. And even Boston made some money, not a ton, but made some money. But not a lot of other teams, always made money.
Hey, Mark Cuban's on point right here. I've seen Brian Windhorst admit with a LeBron James that the Lakers had made the playoffs, but yet made less money than the New York Knicks, who missed the playoffs in that very same season. So it shows you how narrow the window of profitability truly is.
Well, but this is an investment, right? And I think that's one of the things
That's kind of what I think is kind of ruining the NBA in some respects.
Yeah, no, tell us.
Because it's only about value. So there's like talking about more, like I got involved with this group, Harbinger Sports, where it's a private equity fund that only buys minority ownerships, right? Because now I'm an expert on minority ownerships in sports franchises. And there's not a lot of liquidity or marketplace for those ownerships. But for the big private equity companies that are, help the Celtics deal get done, as an example, right? They just want to see a return in their dollar. So they're just trying to push up the valuations. They're not like, it's not like when I came in or even when I left, for the most part, like about fan, right? And so I think that's one of the challenges that got us here is because, yes, teams want valuations to go up, it doesn't really change the actual operation of the team, and it didn't really force the profitability, or push the profitability up, for most teams. So it's kind of a catch-22.
And you can see this play out no further than the Mavericks announcing that they'll raise ticket prices only 2 months after trading away Luka. Again, this is the multi-layers that Trae Young will have to go against when he's trying to get his money today. He's battling the ever-changing landscape on the court, with just a new crop of players coming in, the league switching up the rules back in 2021, so all those baiting fouls that he used to do no longer work. The 65-game rule that kind of prevents stars like him from hitting certain tiers within the Supermax contract. And finally, he's definitely battling his own team. The fact that they spent 3 seasons without a president of basketball operations. That says a lot. But yet they're still hiring people underneath that position to sort of fill it in a ghostly way. This very offseason, they hired an analytical guy and they also hired a vice president. So Trae Young definitely has to watch his back. We'll see how this plays out.